Hi everybody, Russ and the West Ham Network. Hope you are all safe and well. If not, still warm. It's still warm. If you're new and did, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a share, give it a bloody good subscribe. Now, obviously, we're just over a month into the transfer window. Lots of people have been sold. Lots of people we think about might be sold haven't been sold. I said we've been linked to over 126 players. To be honest, it's more than that now. I need to add a few more to that list and update that somewhat. And that's our club alone. Can you imagine what it is across the entire Premier League? So what I thought I'd do is I'll collate, give you an update of who's gone where, what clubs invested in what players, and give you my Rusty ratings on the transfer window so far. So as Anton would say, roll those bloody titles, will ya? So as I said, we're about a month in. I should really add up how much money's been spent already in the Premier League. There's been some big moves, and some not some big moves, and actually some of them have gone under the radar a little bit. Pardon me, with the windy pops, to sort my camera out. So what I've done is go through each club individually, and this is up to what we're up to today. It's not including any impending transfers that could be happening. These are all confirmed transfers. So we'll go club by club, give you my thoughts and give you my rating. So we'll start with the Gooners. So in terms of let's take out the logo quickly so it's easy to read. In terms of their ins, obviously they spent £45 million on Gabriel Jesus. I think it's a very shrewd buy and not a bad price. I think £45 million, in all honesty, in today's market. They've also spent £34 million on Fabio Vieira, who I obviously don't know too much about. I watch a little bit of the Premier Liga in Portugal, and he's a good player, but I haven't seen him enough to give a thought on that particular signing. They signed Matt Turner, the goalkeeper from New England Revolution, for £5.5 million, which will be an interesting signing. Obviously, back up to. But the thing is, that means I would imagine Leno will probably be on his way out, maybe. Ramsdale's definitely got number one jersey there. Marquinhos, the winger from Sao Paulo, I think we were linked with as well. We were looking at £3 million outs. These are the main outs. So Gendouzi from to Marseille for £9 million. He was on loan, I think, last season. So they've made that a permanent deal, I believe. Mavropanos, we were interested in him as well, from Stuttgart. He was on loan there, and they had an obligation to buy at the end of the loan, which they did for absolute pennies, to be honest. And Lacazette they let go on a free, and obviously Aubameyang went in the January transfer window as well. So they've done well. I think they've done okay. I think they've done very good, actually, in terms of the buyers. The talk is that Zinchenko's on his way there as well, which I'm gutted about because I really wanted to at West Ham. But about £30 million, which seems an absolute steal. So obviously, this is not including the Zinchenko deal yet. It has to be officially announced. But the old Rusty rating, I've given them an A+. I think they've done well. I think there's still some areas, midfield is an area which I think they need to improve on, in my opinion. But maybe Fabio Vieira, the next Vieira, maybe he could be the one to take the mantle. Not bad. They've done all right. They've addressed the full. I think obviously they signed Eddie Nketiah on a long-term contract as well, which was a good signing for them. He was obviously potentially out of contract, and was looking at West Ham, looking at him as well. They've done all right business. Obviously, we're still a month to go, really, a month and a bit left. We've got about 5-6 weeks of the transfer window still to go, so plenty to play for with the Gooners. Let's move on and talk about the Villains. I've had a busy transfer, got a lot of stuff done early. Coutinho, they made their loan signing of him permanent. So not really much of a development there in terms of their squad. Boubacar Kamara got the free transfer from Marseille, allegedly playing 180 grand a week, which is ridiculous for a 22-year-old, in my opinion, who's had a couple of good seasons at Marseille, but doesn't really legislate that type of money. Diego Carlos from Sevilla, £26 million, and again believed to be on £200,000 a week. Kamara actually rejected Atletico Madrid for Aston Villa, mainly because of the money. Robin Olsen from Roma, £2.8 million. And they got Rory Wilson from Rangers for £350,000. Obviously, Gerrard, ex-Rangers manager, so he could have his pick of that team, because he knows them very, very well. And Ludwig, on loan from Sevilla, who played against West Ham as well. Diego Carlos didn't. Obviously, he was injured when we played them in the Europa League this year. Outs, not many. Trezeguet, Strasbourg for undisclosed fee. Matty Target, he was already on loan at Newcastle. They've made that a permanent deal, 15 million. And India Vasilev has gone to Inter Miami on loan. So, in terms of the old Rusty rumour race, they've done well, I think, of the A+. I think they probably had a very good, considering where they were. I think they've had a good squad already, so they've added to the centre-back partnership. Definitely so. And yeah, I think for Diego Carlos is a great player, but I think they maybe have overpaid slightly. Maybe I might drop it to an A-. Maybe. Let's move on and talk about Bournemouth. Obviously, the first promoted side we're going to be focusing, obviously first of three. Ain't done a lot. Let's be honest, they ain't done a lot. Let's have a look. Obviously, they got Flash on a free transfer. It's a good deal for them, I think. And good luck to Flash. James Rothwell from Blackburn on a free. Quite a few outs, whether it be loans or undisclosed fees or released, like Gary Cahill. I think they would have probably kept as a release, I think, in terms of experience going to the Premier League. Robbie Brady went on a loan, on a free move to Preston. So they haven't really done anything major. I've given them a D- because, for me, there's nothing there yet. There's no, by all accounts, by the looks of it, they're going to go with the squad that they went up with, which is fair enough. But there's no added quality or experience of that as well. And letting people like Gary Cahill go, I mean, I don't really know the ins and outs of why he's gone, but you thought he would be a useful asset to have throughout the season, just for his experience as well. Let's talk about Brentford. Obviously, the main one for them is Christian Eriksen not signing for them and signing for Man United instead. But they've done some really good business, I think. And a lot of West Ham targets, if they were West Ham targets. At least one was, in terms of Lewis Potter, I think. They've done some really good business. They've obviously signed Aaron Hickey for 19 million, the left back from Bologna. Lewis Potter, a deal around £20 million, I believe. They've got Yaroluk from Dnipro, who I have no idea who he is. Thomas Strakosha from Lazio, the goalkeeper, on a free transfer. Good, he's 26, 27, I think. Good shout, that is. And got rid of people like, they say, brought in Thomas as a goalkeeper, and they got rid of Yossel, who went back on his loan deal. And various others. So I think Brentford have done well. They've had a good transfer window. I'll give them an A- because they've just identified and haven't gone too crazy, but they brought in real quality into the areas they need in terms of, and obviously we've still got 6 weeks to go. So this is sort of the interim school report we used to have. Brighton. Now Brighton, I don't think they've done very good business at the moment. They've got, at the moment it stands, they've got Luio, I can't rubbish it. Luio Enkisco from Libertac Ascuni for 9.5 million. No idea. Benico, former West Ham youth team player who was at Porto. He's now gone to Brighton, so he'll probably be scoring against us sometime soon. And Simon Andigar for 7.2. So they haven't spent massively, although they did lose Bissouma to Tottenham for 25 million, which is a huge miss for them. And also they sold Malumbi to West Brom for 900k. So again, not great business yet, not loads of business at all. I gave them a C- because they're buying some spending some money, spending something like 25 million, and you think scouting, these guys have been scouted, and nice to see a former Hammer back in the Premier League in terms of Benico, he was like the golden child. He was one we were really gutted. I know people are gutted at the moment about what's his name, Alese leaving. Benico was like, he was going to be a good next one, the next big star, highly rated at the age of I think 16, and then went to Porto. And now is back at Brighton. So there we go, back in the Premier League. Let's go and talk about Chelsea. Now, Chelsea, I think, have done some good business, and a lot of good. By the sounds of it, some more good business is going to come through. Looks like they're going to buy Jules Koundé, the centre back from Sevilla, who we know too well. He's a good player, but I think it's a bit small. But buying in someone like, what's talking? Can you hear some talking? Sorry, I do apologise. I've got some random how to stop digital clutter. Random. Anyway, digital clutter. That's digital clutter there. So yeah, I mean, obviously, by bringing in Koulibaly, who I think is a fantastic player. Maybe a couple of years too late for me in terms of his prime, but him, Thiago Silva, Koundé, you got some really good centre backs, but they let a lot go as well. Obviously, Sterling's a huge deal for them as well. They obviously let Lukaku go on loan. Rudiger went on a free transfer. Christensen went on a free transfer. Danny Drinkwater went. Sonda was released, and they've brought in, as I said, Raheem Sterling. I think is a great player. I think it would do really well for them in the way they set up, and Koulibaly, and maybe Condé's on the horizon as well. Obviously, it could mean that they could get rid of Brozier as well, which would be lovely to us. But at present, that's what it is. Rusty gives them an A- because I think although they still need to. I think if they get Koundé in, for me, that would probably push it up to an A+, because that's almost a direct replacement for Rudiger and Christensen in Koulibaly and Koundé. Probably two better players, in my opinion. Right, let's move on. Let's talk about Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace had a massive, changeover of the guard this summer. Lots of players coming to the end of the contract. I haven't included all of them because I couldn't get them all on the screen. But it was something like 10 players they released. They brought in Sam Johnson on a free transfer. Good shout. They've obviously got. They currently have what's his name? Guitarra, that's a Guitarra, as their goalkeeper as well. So interesting. They signed Decore from Lens, who's a good player, a good young player. And you see what Vieira's doing. He's buying in lots of young players. Last season he brought in Alese, he brought in people like that, and I think they make it might take 6 months, a year for them to develop into the player that he thinks they're going to be. But I think he's doing it very slowly but surely. The old Rusty Rimmer Ratings give him a C+, because there's been a lot of outs, there's not that many ins, not that many spent money on ins on people who are ready. These guys are potential, particularly Malcolm as well. He's potential, really. He's not fully developed at all, so a little bit of a risk there. Let's move on. Let's talk about Everton. Now, obviously, Everton had a very poor season last season, so I thought they would probably be going all out. Hasn't seemed like that at the moment. They got rid of Richarlison, 60 million. Fabian Delph was released. Sigurdsson was released. Toussaint was released. John Joe Kenny went to Hertha Berlin on a free transfer, and they've only brought in James Stelkowski. They seem to be linked with all our players all the bloody time. They're like Newcastle, but they haven't bought anyone. I'd be worried if I was a bit of an Everton fan at the moment, because they haven't had a great season last season, and now they've released a lot of players, and I haven't seen anything coming. Gordon obviously signed. Well, I think he signed a new long-term deal, and I think they made him number 10 as well, so that's good news. But that's it. So C-, if not a D, to be fair. I mean, Tarkowski's a good player, and he'll fit into Everton's, the team well, I think. But losing Richarlison hasn't been replaced yet. That's a big issue for them. Let's talk about Fulham, the second promoted club. Now, they've obviously one of their players was always going to go. Fabio Carvalho was basically, it was a pre-season, it was a pre-contract thing with Liverpool in January, wasn't it? Really, so for £8 million. So that's gone there through now. They brought in some good players. I think they brought in João Palhinha from Sporting Lisbon, £70 million. Again, I don't watch loads of Premier Liga from the Portuguese league, but I have seen him play. I I didn't think he stand out much, but I think he could be a good player for them. He's a direct replacement maybe for Carvalho, to be honest. They got Andres Pereira, who's a good player as well, for Man United. I think with the right manager under his belt, I think he'd do really well. But a lot of outs. They spent money. So if they took, we don't know how much for Andres Pereira, but they sold it. Carvalho for 8 million, which I think is an absolute steal for Liverpool, and replaced him with 17 million pounds. Even say 10-15 for Pereira maybe. Some good players, B-. I think could do better, and I think there'll be some definite movement this in the next 6 weeks. Let's talk about Leeds, dirty Leeds. Now I think Leeds, although on paper you think they've lost two of their biggest players, which they have, Calvin Phillips and Rafinha. To be fair, Calvin Phillips didn't play a lot last season, to be fair. He was injured quite a lot. Rafinha for 55 million, so 97, almost 100 million pounds worth of players out the door. I think they've reinvested money really well. Obviously Jesse Marsch knows the German league. He knows the German Austrian leagues and things like that very well, as well as the American leagues as well. Bringing in a couple of guys from Salzburg and Leipzig. Tyler Adams is a great player. I think he would do really well. Marco Rocha from Bayern Munich. Didn't really get the opportunity at Bayern Munich. I think he'd come in and do well. I don't really know much about Darko Guabi for Man City, but that was a sort of a secondary deal to the Calvin Phillips deal. Brendan Harrison from Salzburg, again some solid players who are going to work well for Leeds. I think for Leeds it's more about the team effort rather than necessarily individuals. So I've given them a B+. I think they've done well. I think the fans maybe want to see, I don't know, like a big name signing to replace a Rafinha. But they got the likes of Harrison, they got Bamford. As I said, Phillips didn't play a lot last season, and so although he'd be a loss because he's a Leeds boy, I think Leeds will do okay this season. I think they will. Let's move on. Let's talk about Leicester City. Not much to say at the moment. They've signed F all, and I've given them an F. Just makes no sense, Supposedly have really good owners. Why haven't they signed anyone? I don't understand this. They haven't let anyone go of notability, whatever. They've released a few free transfers, but it's sort of gone to Championship, League 1, League 2 sides. Not necessarily any big money outside the door. Just haven't signed anyone. And you think someone like Vardy, who's come to the end, Yuri Tielemans is looking for out. We've been linked. Arsenal been linked. I wouldn't be surprised something like Liverpool might be bidding for him as well. So to replace Henderson eventually. But they haven't signed anyone. Weird. Let's talk about Liverpool, shall we? Liverpool, they've signed 3 players of note. Darwin Núñez for £64 million, and then Fabio Carvalho for £8 million. And Calvin Ramsey, the left back from Aberdeen for £6.5 million. I think some great deals, some good players, some really exciting players coming through. And you see that with them. They sort of send one out and they bring one in. So they sent out Sadio Mane to Bayern Munich for £35 million. I think that was a good deal for them. Minamino for over 15 million quid to Monaco. Nico Williams of 17 million pounds, and that's almost a like for like. Those 3 for being almost direct replacements for Núñez, Carvalho, and Ramsey. In essence, Divock Origi went on a free transfer, which I was gutted because I went in West Ham. Cornelius, the goalkeeper, he's gone. And Ojo, who's been sort of around the championships for various clubs on loan, moved to Cardiff on a free transfer. So I think Liverpool have actually done some really good business. I put A-. I think they could do what I think they could do personally with addressing that midfield position. I think the likes of Milner, the likes of Henderson, there's no sort of, that's why it wouldn't surprise me if they start putting bid for, Amadou Onana or something like that, because for me it's like it's the next generation, and they're sort of doing it in terms of the attacking sense and defensively as well. Nico Williams really going out and bringing in Calvin Ramsey. So there's some good deals there. let's move on and talk about City. Man City, obviously, went big early on. They spent over 120 odd million. Some of that was already set up already. So Julio Alves with a plate that was sort of announced in the January transfer window, really £14 million. They signed Calvin Phillips, £42 million, a direct replacement for Fernandinho, who went on a free transfer. I think he's playing in Brazil now, I believe. And obviously spent very well, I think, on Haaland. £52 million for Erling Haaland, I think, is an absolute steal. Particularly when they sell, Sterling out for 50 million, for 2 million more, they got Haaland. Or even if you're doing Gabriel Jesus, it's been, it's more of a direct replacement, £7 million more, and you got Haaland. They've done well selling some of their players as well. The likes of Basuno, who not a lot of people know, £15 million to Southampton. Pedro Porro, £7 million to Lisbon. Obviously, they sold Guabi to Leeds for £5 million. And Romeo Lavia to Southampton. Southampton have spent 25 million quid on players that we don't really know much about. So I think they've done well. A plus I think for them, because they've identified positions and bought players. So they've the central midfield, Fernandinho out, Calvin Phillips in. If they keep him fit, that's a good deal. Brought out, got rid of Jesus, got rid of Sterling, brought in Haaland as their main focal point, which should be interesting to see how they play with him. I think Julian Alves, he's going to be a generational star as well. He's going to be, that sort of Sergio Aguero, Luis Suarez, these sort of generational South American players. I think Alves is going to be one of them. So I think it's absolutely still £14 million. Right, let's talk about the noisy neighbours. No, the other neighbours. In terms of Man United. Now, currently, they spent over 60 million quid on Lisandro Martinez, who's a great player, very small. I think it's 5, or for a centre-back, I'm quite small, but even for a centre-back, I'll be small, but he is quite small. I think he's about 5'10", 5'11", but he's got a good leap in him, strong midfield, strong centre-back, very, very good player. Would have liked to see him at West Ham, potentially. They spent £13 million for Terrell, from Feyenoord, obviously, Ten Hag knowing that league well. Christian Eriksen on the free transfer, which is, I think, a fantastic bit of business. Out the door, obviously, there's a lot of change there. So Henderson's gone out on loan. Pereira went to Fulham. Matic has gone to Roma on a free transfer. Cavani's been released. Jesse's been released. Mata's been released. Pogba went to Juventus on a free transfer after being released as well. So a lot of churn, and I don't think there's enough coming in terms of quality, which surprises me a little bit with Man United, because they still have a pull being Man United, although it's being diminished as every season goes past. They're not successful. I'm going to put B+ for Man United. I think there's more to do, definitely, for the Red Devils. Let's talk about Newcastle, the money men. Now, until recently, they'd only spent 15 million quid on Matty Targett making his loan deal a permanent deal. Since they've gone in and spent some more money, and I think they spent it well. Nick Pope for £10 million, I think is a fantastic deal. Sven Botman from Lille, the centre back, who I'd have liked to West Ham potentially as well. £35 million, maybe slightly too expensive, but maybe that's Newcastle tax type thing. And they brought a couple of youngsters into, the likes of Alex Murphy from Galloway United, Charlie MacArthur from Kilmarnock, and Brandon Aguilera from that team. They've a lot have gone out the door as well. Quite a bit on loan, actually. Hayden Isaac's gone on loan. Jeff Hendrick, Kieran Clark have all gone on loan. A few have gone for undisclosed fees, like Freddie Woodman, the goalkeeper. There needs to be a bit more, I think, particularly with all the money they've got available, but they're not splashing the cash regardless. They seem to be spending it quite wisely, but I think they need a bit more. I think the fans would like to see a big marquee signing. someone that they can put on the back of their shirts. They haven't really got one like that. They've got guys who are going to come in and do a really good job. We know Matty Targett did well for them last season on loan. Nick Pope's a good goalkeeper, will improve their goalkeeper situation. Sven Botman will tighten up that defence without a doubt, and will be a pillar for Newcastle for many years to come. So I've given them a B-. I think there's a bit more application needed there, to be fair. Let's talk about Forest. Obviously, they've been recently promoted as well, and I think whereas the likes of Fulham and Bournemouth have been a bit more tentative, maybe because they've been in the Premier League and they sort of know sort of the bounce of it, and maybe they're sort of developing their own squad. Forest have gone completely the other way, I think, and spent quite big, and I think actually they spent really wisely, and there's a lot of names that we've been linked with which they've signed, so fair play to them. They got Nico Williams from Liverpool, 70 million quid. Of course he goes to Nottingham Forest. For us it should be Liverpool. They got Teo, who I really wanted, 7.5 million from Union Berlin, who's basically my Antonio Mark II. Omar Richards they brought in. Dean Henderson on loans, I think a fantastic buy. Plus they got Wayne Hennessy, so that's their goalkeepers sorted. And they also got Moussa Nkata from Mans for an undisclosed fee. Again, a guy that we were interested in, who's the Mainz captain as well. And they've got rid of some of the older guard, the likes of Lewis Grabbins, Guyton Bohr. They got rid of Carl Jenkinson, who went on loan to Western Australia, I think it was last season, and then was being released. So for me, I think they've done quite well. A-. I think they've done really, really well. And they've got a striker, they've got some midfield players, got the goalkeeper sorted, defence. They've done really well, I think, and it's just a case of, can they all gel in the same side? I think that's the problem. You go quite big early on. But they've done it quite early, so they've got time to gel over pre-season, which is really useful. Let's talk about Southampton. We've spoken to them a bit before, but they spent some money on Man City players, youth team Man City players, realistically. Gavin Bazzuno, £15 million. Romeo Lavia for 10.5. They got Joe Aribo from Rangers for 10 million. They got Bella Kotchap from Bochum for 9 million quid. They've done all right. I think they've got a lot of players that sort of we don't know much about, which isn't a bad thing. They could become good, and that's what Southampton tends to do. They tend to get the sort of the next ones. They sort of scout them very well, and they don't tend to be duds, to be honest, in terms of the guys they bring in. They've let a lot of the older players go, like Shane Long went to Reading, Fraser Forster went to Tottenham, which I was a little bit surprised about. So yeah, I've given them a C+. Actually, I think that's a bit mean. I'm going to put it up to a B-, because actually I think a lot of these players would have been scouted, and we don't know much about them yet, so I think it's unfair to me to give them a little thing. Let's talk about 3 Point Lane now. Spoiler, I think they've done some really good business this summer window. As much as it pains me to say, I think they've done some good business this summer. They've brought in Richarlison. I think they overplayed slightly for Richarlison, but they got the deal done very quickly because Everton need the money in. So maybe that's a little quid pro quo. They're going to help them out later on. Bissouma for 25 million. Dage Spence for 20 million. I think it's an absolute bargain. I think he's going to be fantastic. They've got Perisic on a free. I think it's a great signing. You got Lenglet from Barcelona on loan. Fraser Forster as a backup keeper to Lloris. And they managed to sell Bergwijn for 26 million quid to Ajax. Carter Vickers went to Celtic for 10 million. Even Jack Clark went to Sunderland for 10 million quid. So I think they've done some really good business. As much as it pains me to say, I think they've done really well. My only concern is a lot of strange personalities in that team. Richarlison, I think, can be a spiky player, based on team morale. Bissouma has obviously the court case over his head. Ivan Perisic will come in with a winning mentality. How will that play with them not winning anything? I don't know. So it's going to be interesting. Clement Lenglet, obviously from Barcelona, used to winning, so they've got some winners in there. Ivan Perisic, I think they got about 5 years too late, but Dave Spence, I think, is going to be a future England right back, that's for sure. Russ is giving them much, it pains me, an A-. The reason I've given an A-, I think they've overpaid on Richarlison. I still think they need to sort out their centre-backs a little bit, and I think they need to... I think that, for me, they've sort of gone for they've got attack. They've got Bissouma in that sort of midfield. They've tightened that up a little bit. Deja on the right. That'd be interesting to see how he plays. But it's the goalkeeper. I think Lloris could have been replaced. I don't think Fraser Forster is good enough to put pressure on Lloris. So that surprises me. You think with the likes of Dean Henderson, Sam Johnson, some good goalkeepers who have been around, that Spurs didn't go out all out for one of them. Particularly like someone like Sam Johnson, who's 28, could be their goalkeeper for the next 6 years, really, if he played these cards right. Let's talk about Wolves. We're going to talk West Ham last, obviously. Now, Wolves, I think Wolves have done okay. They've spent £20 million on Nathan Collins. I believe that's the most ever played for an Irish player or something like that, someone was saying, from Burnley. Good player, but 20 million seems a lot of money for him, to be honest. Hwang Hee-Chang, they got on loan. He was on loan at Leipzig last season. Did well for them, I thought. Had a great start to the campaign, but sort of drifted off a little bit to the end. So 40 million quid they paid for him. They got rid of a lot of players. They got rid of Romy and Sais, who I think is a good player. Surprised he went, to be honest. John Ruddy went to Birmingham on a free transfer. So for me, it seems they've done okay, but I think there's a lot more they can do. It surprised me because I thought they wanted to really have a go and build on this. I gave them a C+ because I don't think they've really, Hwang Hee-Chan is basically the same player as last season, a bit the same with Areola with us. I think Nathan Collins, they might have overpaid a little bit as well. Particularly if Burnley had gone down, but fair play, Burnley got what they wanted. Let's talk about the Mighty Hammers. So obviously at present, Naif Aguerd, we signed for £30 million. We made Areola's loan deal sort of permanently for 10 million, between 7, 8 and 10. These are just numbers that, sort of the total package. Flynn Downs as well, anywhere between 9 and 12 million pounds apparently. I think they're good signings. I think we need more. We know we need more. We let a lot go. Obviously, Mark Noble, Andrei Yarmolenko went to Al Ain. Ryan Fredericks, we released, went to Bournemouth. David Martin, Nathan Holland, Uzama Ashley went to Colchester on a free. Obviously, we sold Alese for around about £500,000, which seems a bit cheap to me. Obviously, we're linked with Brosius, Skarmaka, Ram, Onana, so many players. Jordan Torunargahia, I can't pronounce his name, from Hertha Berlin. So, at the halfway stage, I think we've signed some good players, but we still need some more. So I've given a B+, because in the same way with Hwang Hee-Chang, Areola is a like for like because he was on loan, so there's no improvement to our squad. Flynn Downs has come in as a replacement for Mark Noble, and that sort of, and really Alex Kroll potentially as well. Naif Aguerd is coming, and that's a position we needed filled. And now it's about what we can do next. So at the halfway stage, or ish halfway stage, 6 weeks in, 5-6 weeks, I think it's we've done well. But I think there's a lot more to come. And by the sounds of it, by the end of this week, there will be a lot more to come, hopefully. But what do you guys think? As I said, it's just my thoughts. Maybe you don't agree with some of them. Maybe you think some of them are a bit low, some of them are a bit too high. But let me know what you think in the comments below. As I said, Anton will be back tomorrow, back with the Hammers headlines and all that stuff. And I'll be back on Thursday with all my bits and bobs, and Fridays and all good stuff coming up. So take care and stay safe, wash those hands, stay lucky, stay cheeky, stay hydrated, stay cool. Put your ice block in the freezer and your sheets in the freezer for a nice cool night for the next couple of days. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. We'd like to thank all our channel members. If you want to be a channel member, click on the button below. You're automatically entered into all of our channel member draws we do every week. And we do a memorabilia draw monthly. Take care and stay safe, wash those hands, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care, my friends. Bye. Bye.
It's like a family tree.